Hi guys, before we start I just want to apologise for the way I'm looking. I literally just got back from the cinema and after watching Dragon Ball Superhero, and I really wanted to talk about it. So I hope you enjoy this different type of video. Don't worry, the AMVs are still coming, but I just felt like making something else. I'll expand on that at the end. But yeah, so just got back from the cinema and I have to say I really enjoyed the movie. It was really good. I had a lot of doubts going into the movie. I think particularly when the first trailer dropped, I think obviously everyone was very skeptical of the CGI, especially coming off the back of Broly, which is up there with one of the best looking animated movies, probably with Demon Slayer, Moving Train and Into the Spider-Verse in my opinion. Yeah, and to be honest, Broly in general just set the bar really high. It's one of my favourite movies and it's just beautifully executed throughout. So yeah, the bar was set up pretty high and the trailer came out and the CGI obviously looked off-putting at first. There seemed to be a big focus on Pan and I'm not gonna lie, in anime little children just end up being really annoying characters that you don't want to see. But no, I really liked it. I had some concerns about the Red Ribbon Army as well, but no, it was all really good. I'm going to try and keep the first half of the video spoiler free and then maybe go into spoilers later on. Hopefully I don't end up letting stuff slip. Obviously it's my first time doing something like this, so you'll have to forgive me if that does happen, but yeah. So my thoughts. I'm going to start with the things I really liked. And I guess I'll start with the thing I was worried about the most. The CGI. It was actually really good. The movie was gorgeous pretty much throughout. I actually thought the CGI lended itself really well for this style of movie. It was very stylized. It lent into the whole superhero aspect really well, even in terms of the style of the animation and stuff. So I really enjoyed that. The colours as well. I mean, for the large majority of the movie, it's very colourful and I feel like the CGI lends itself to being very vibrant. Something I thought was really impressive, which I guess shouldn't really come as much of a surprise, but the actual effects in terms of the battling and like the ki blasts and stuff were amazing. I thought the movie was well paced. One of my biggest concerns going into the movie was that there was a lot of characters shown in the trailer, whereas I know we got some criticism for this, but I thought Broly worked really well because the cast was concise, which meant that we could spend a lot more time with them and actually develop a bond to like Broly and Chila, and I thought it just made the narrative flow a lot better. And I was a bit concerned going into this movie that we were gonna have like basically the extended Dragon Ball cast outside of Goku and Vegeta, but it worked really well. I feel like a lot of characters got a lot of screen time. There were characters I thought needed a bit more, which I'll get into later, but for the most part it was well balanced. Everything was paced pretty well. I found it funny because in the trailers it's kind of like shown as a Gohan movie, but if anything I would say it's a Piccolo movie. He's giving some great characterization in this movie. He gets a lot of screen time and honestly it really endeared me to the character again. Not that I never disliked Piccolo, I mean everyone loves Piccolo, but it was good to see that Toei actually give him care and attention. I was very surprised, but I actually really enjoyed the villains. I was very skeptical about the Red Ribbon Army, and in the trailers it kind of looked like, you know, just another Commander Red, and I thought he was a kid at the time, but it turns out he's just a short, fat guy. It's Dr. Header, I believe his name was. So I had some concerns about that, but they were done really well. Dr. Header was a really good character, even if I did keep hearing his voice as Tanjiro. The biggest surprise for me were probably the Gammas. I was really hoping that they would like give them personality, and a particularly unique personality, and they did that really well. Gamma 2 in particular became, I wouldn't say one of my favourite characters, but I really enjoyed his character a lot and I really warmed to him very quickly. This may be a bit of a spoiler just to let you know, but I think it was fairly well known that from the trailer Vegeta and Goku weren't really going to be involved in the events of this movie as they're shown to be on Beerus' planet, which was the case. But I thought that lended itself really well to the movie because it meant we could spend a lot more time with characters other than them, which primarily Dragon Ball tends to focus on. So it was really enjoyable seeing, like I said, Piccolo get lots of characterization. Pan was a standout character for me. I touched on this earlier, but Pan was a concern of mine going into the show. I know in GT she wasn't written very well, and obviously she was a little kid, and I thought she wasn't going to be done very well, but honestly I really warmed to the character. I already really enjoy her.
What do you mean by that?
She was very fiery, but not in like an overly arrogant way. She was very playful, and I quite enjoyed the subversion that the movie did from the trailers, without going into too much detail now. But yeah, she was a really enjoyable character. Actually really excited to see what they do with her going forward, so that's good. As a result of the movie being very focused on like what's going on Earth, I felt like we got a lot more kind of slice of life stuff, and that was very enjoyable to see. I always enjoy Dragon Ball slice of life. To be honest, I always wish they do more. So that was very enjoyable, and the movie was actually quite funny. I mean, sometimes Dragon Ball humour isn't the best, and there were, don't get me wrong, there were obnoxious parts which maybe kids will like, but for the most part I really enjoyed the comedy. I thought there were some really good parts with Bulma and Piccolo, who we don't normally get to see interact that much, so that was good. So the movie isn't quite up to the same level as Broly, which, to be fair, is a very high bar to reach, but it was lacking in some aspects, so I guess the things I didn't like, while I did enjoy the CGI for the most part, there were parts where it did really stand out, in particular towards the end when it was a lot darker. That's when the CGI tended to look a lot worse in my opinion. In particular when it was dark and cloudy, and the characters would have auras, and then as a result it would make the faces come across really shiny on the CGI. And honestly, while some aspects of the movie looked really good, those parts, I had to say, they looked like they come straight from Xenoverse 2. Okay, so there's a lot more I want to talk about, but I feel like I just kind of have to put a spoiler warning now, because a lot of the stuff I'm going to say is going to contain spoilers. One of the things where I think the movie did fumble a little was with its handling of Gohan. Obviously, it was heavily insinuated from the promo material, the trailers, that Gohan was going to be the main protagonist. It's going to be his movie, along with Piccolo. But to be honest, Gohan's a very passive character. We don't see him much. He spends a lot of it just working, and he kind of has to get forced into the movie. And I did think the movie also stumbled a bit there, because one moment Piccolo's going on about how he's a really big threat, but then the next minute he's like happily kidnapping Pan to then get Gohan to come along so he will take training seriously again or something. I did think Piccolo's plan was a bit questionable considering what he thought was at stake. I think it wouldn't have mattered as much if at the end he got more character growth, but even in the final battles he didn't really get the growth that I think a lot of people were expecting. I particularly was hoping for. I thought the takeaway of the movie would be that Gohan would learn the importance of, I know it's a repeated story at this point, but he would learn the importance of, while he doesn't need to train, he should want to then be able to protect Pan and his loved ones, which obviously is quite a recurring theme with him, but I wanted to be like emphasised as a turning point for him, and it didn't really feel like we got that, even though he got a new transformation, which I suppose now that I mentioned that, I should probably talk about the transformations. I'm not actually too familiar with the names, so I tried to stay as spoiler free for this movie as I could. Unfortunately, I did get spoiled on some stuff going into it, so I did know what Gohan's transformation looked like. I did know what Piccolo's transformation looked like, which was a bit of a shame. And I did also get spoiled on Cell Max a little, which was a shame, but I guess it was a bit inevitable with the gap between release of Japan and the Western world. Starting with Gohan, I thought Gohan's beast form was pretty cool. I do have some gripes with it, mainly the fact that obviously the hair is silver. I mean, of all things, why would you give him silver hair when Ultra Instinct's just come out? Especially as this is clearly meant to be a different route to what the route Goku's gone down. I was hoping we'd get a form kind of like Super Saiyan 4 where he retains his hair colour, but maybe the form is different in other ways. But the new form is still cool. The hair was, there have been memes about it, but the hair was a bit too big in my opinion. And the main thing was that it didn't really feel that earned. It did feel like it was a bit of a beat for beat retelling of Cell Saga in that sense, where, you know, he even has the same flash of light go behind his head as he snaps. But it didn't really feel like he was that emotional about it up until like a few seconds before he snapped, which it could have been a bit better. Then there was Piccolo's new form, which I also was a bit skeptical about that at first. I thought that, you know, the super square jaw was a bit odd, but I actually really warmed up to it. It was a really cool form. It was really cool to see him use his big form again. I thought the way that Piccolo obtained the form was a bit cheap though. I thought of all people, Piccolo would be the last person who'd want to have his potential unlocked. Considering he's someone that's always training, you would expect that for him to want to earn that power. But he just wishes Shenron for the power and he gets it. But it's still a cool transformation, and I'm really hoping that we'll get to see Piccolo more involved in fights from now on. And then I guess we should talk about the big bad, which, surprise surprise, Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 weren't the main villains of the movie. It was in fact Cell. But not Cell as we know, they call him Cell Max, and to be honest, as much as I love the movie, I hated Cell Max. It just did not work for me at all. It was a big concern going into it that if there was going to be a Cell character, would it be the same Cell that we know? And it wasn't. And even worse, it was like a big, is it Rudigon from Wrath of the Dragon? Which is a big kaiju type monster. He had these red parts on him which just kind of made him look like a bit of a ladybug or something to me. Or a Christmas tree. It just didn't work for me. I thought if they weren't going to be able to bring back the Cell that we knew, then maybe they should have just gone with a different villain. They do even... The movie actually shows us Android 21 in it at a point, and given the fact that we don't have any connection to Cell, maybe it would have just been better to introduce her as the Android villain. It just didn't work for me, and it was a shame as well because I really enjoyed Gamma 1 and 2 and there wasn't really any emotion behind it, and I think as such that did cheapen Gohan's transformation because it's not like it was a Cell we knew that was traumatizing him, and anything, even Gohan didn't even really acknowledge it was Cell. He was just like, they were just fighting this big beast, it could have been anything, which was a shame. I guess we should talk about our main heroes, Goku and Vegeta. So they spend this movie off on planet Beerus, and to be honest, they actually got more screen time than I thought they were going to get. There was a healthy amount of the movie dedicated to them. Perhaps maybe a bit too much. Maybe some of that time could have been dedicated to giving Gohan more of a character arc. It was enjoyable. It was good to see that they were interacting with Broly, and there was some really good interactions with Beerus and Whis. Whis again, as always, steals the show with the comedy. I thought, despite their very little screen time, I thought Vegeta got some good character work and how he is trying to self-improve. And spoiler alert, Vegeta actually wins a fight against Goku, which technically I consider that he won the fight against Goku in the Saiyan saga and also in the Majin Buu saga, but that's a different story. But yeah, Vegeta wins, which was really nice to see, and that's how actually the movie ends, which for Toei to end with Vegeta winning against Goku was quite surprising to me, but I'm happy about that. I thought Broly was a bit underused. Obviously, I didn't expect him to have a large role in the movie, but it kind of seemed like the writers didn't really know what to do with him either. They established that they've been training for a while with him, but every time he goes Super Saiyan, like, you know, his rage takes over and he can't really be controlled, and as a result he's kind of just sidelined to just sitting around and watching the other characters interact with each other. There was this really weird moment where Beerus basically has a thing for Chilai, and I thought it was going to result in some confrontation between Broly and Beerus, but it doesn't amount to anything. Broly's just sitting around minding his own business. He doesn't even take notice of it, which I thought was a bit odd. It seemed like it was going to build up something and it didn't, and as such it just felt like, while it was a bit humorous, it felt like it wasn't really that needed as well. I thought for how little screen time they got, all the characters on Beerus' planet, stood out really well. It was really enjoyable to see them interact. To be honest, pretty much all the characters in the movie come across really well and they're really enjoyable to watch. Unfortunately, there are some characters who don't get the love, and it's probably going to be a big blow to some people, but I thought Trunks and Goten were still criminally underused. They do address the whole them being small for so long and then obviously growing, which Gohan addresses as the fact that Saiyans stay small for ages and then they have a big growth spurt, which is kind of in line with what Goku goes through in the original Dragon Ball. But they don't get to do much. They show up at the end because Bulma picks them up, so we don't even get to see them in the slice of life stuff prior, which is a shame. They don't really have any impact on the fight. They act like they haven't fought in ages because they didn't even really remember how to do the fusion dance, and they messed the fusion dance up and were treated to another messed up fusion, which at this point I don't really see how Toei haven't milked that comedy dry. But yeah, they transform into the fat version of Gotenks and it's just used for comedy basically, and it just, that comedy in particular for me just didn't land. There was a lot of like butt jokes and slapping his butt and it was just like really weird and it felt out of place, and it just takes away from the stakes, which is, to be honest, has always been my problem with Gotenks. But they had an opportunity now that they're older to do something there and they just didn't, and that was a bit of a shame. But other than that, I really enjoyed the characters. The movie was really good. Recording this now, it feels like I have spent more time in the negatives, but honestly it's a very fun movie. I can't really fault it too much. I probably will go and see it again, and it sets up the universe for something really good. I mean, I'm curious to see how Gohan and Piccolo are now going to fit into the universe and where it's going to go. It's stated throughout the movie that Gohan potentially does have more latent potential than Goku, so maybe they're going to lean into that and he's going to be more involved in the series. I don't know if it is going to follow the manga, and in that case none of this is going to even be relevant. But yeah, hopefully they do something really cool with it. I'm actually really intrigued to see where Pan goes. She was a really enjoyable character to watch. I hope we see Gamma 1 and even Gamma 2 back again. Obviously I know, spoiler alert, Gamma 2, the movie ends with Gamma 2 dying, but honestly he was such a joy to watch. I really hope he makes a return somehow. Even Dr. Hedo, he was fun to watch. And yeah, I think Dragon Ball's in a really good place, and it just honestly scratched that itch for Dragon Ball content, but it just meant that I want even more. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this different type of video. I know, I apologise if it's been a bit awkward at times. I've never really done anything like this, but yeah, I just wanted to talk about it, let my opinions be known. I'd love to have a conversation about the movie with anyone that's seen it in the comments. But yeah, in terms of the normal content, I am working on an AMV. I do apologise, it's been a long time. It's a big one in terms of a big project. They are very time consuming, so I'd be open to doing other content while I'm making them, which maybe you can let me know in the comments if you'd be down for that. But yeah, I would like to do things other than AMVs. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed me talking about Dragon Ball. I apologise if it was a bit of a mess. I will see you guys next time.